Hi everybody and welcome back to Base Camp. Today we're in session 3 on our series on the 10 Commandments. We're looking at the second commandment about idols. The passage we're going to be looking at specifically is Exodus chapter 20 verses 4 through 6. You must not make for yourself an idol of any kind, or an image of anything in the heavens or on the earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, who will not tolerate your affection for any other gods. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected, even children in the third and fourth generations of those who reject me. But I lavish unfailing love for 1,000 generations on those who love me and obey my commands. That's Exodus chapter 20, verses 4 through 6. The second command is very similar to the first command. The first command, of course, was to worship God only, which obviously that would mean no idols. But in what is an idol? I mean, we don't make little statues anymore and bow down and worship them. In the context that it was written, it was common for household idols of various so-called gods. Idol worship was a common practice. Even up to the first century of Christianity, idol worship was still commonly practiced. You'd have a little statue of Zeus or Hera or whatever god your home worshipped. So, I mean, that is one aspect of this. So God definitely doesn't want us doing that. We are not to make any idols or graven images of Him. God the Father and the Holy Spirit really don't have any physical form. Jesus, on the other hand, was the God in flesh, and He did have a physical form. We don't know exactly what He looked like. Icons and Christian artwork have depicted Jesus and His apostles in many ways, specifically focus on Jesus. Jesus has been depicted in various forms through the centuries. The truth is, we don't know what He looked like. Not really. I mean, we can make an educated guess, but it is just that, an educated guess. And one of the dangers that we fall into when we have Christian artwork is a lot of Christian artwork, especially that made in Europe, is depicting Jesus as a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed man. While he was a man, he probably wasn't blonde, white, or blue-eyed. Keyword there is probably. Because we don't know. So there is a danger, and that we shouldn't depict God in any particular image. So on one hand, there's nothing inherently wrong with having a picture of Jesus, but we have to understand the limitations of those pictures. Different denominations and church traditions have different stances on it. Some say have icons and statues and paintings everywhere. Others do not. It's been a debate through the centuries, probably from the Protestant Reformation on. Take it for what you will. Each Christian and denomination has to decide for themselves on what stance they're going to take. I wouldn't say, unless you're bowing down and worshiping that as if that was Christ Himself, I don't see a problem as long as people keep in mind the limitations. But moving on into the verse, What does it mean when God says he is a jealous God? The Hebrew word that is translated jealous is, and I may be mispronouncing this, so take it with a grain of salt, is qanah. It means a deep desire for exclusive devotion, and not the negative, insecure jealousy that we see in human relationships. This word is specifically used to describe God alone. It is an expectation that our relationship with him will be exclusive and faithful. So there's some mistranslation. It's the best translation you can get, but it's not all the way there. So God is not as jealous as in insecure and possessive, as much as he expects absolute devotion from his people. And then there's the part where he says that he punishes the children up to the third and fourth generations for the sins of their parents. Regrettably, this has been misused at various times. There is consequences for sin. Not keeping the commands, there is consequences, and those consequences can trickle down, but not necessarily that God is punishing the children for what the parents did. This is seen in John chapter 9, verse 2, when Jesus' disciples asked him, his disciples asked him, "Why is the man born blind? Was it because of his own sins, or the sins of his parents?" It was very common in first century Judaism to believe that if a child was born blind or with some obvious deformity, it was because of the sins of the parents. And unfortunately, this may be one of the places that was coming from. But that may be the case. There's a lot of reasons that a child can be born with a deformity or other problem. On the flip side of that, it says that there will be blessings for those who obey. Choices have consequences. When we make good choices, there are natural consequences that will trickle down. When we make bad choices, that also has consequences. So no matter which way we choose, there are always consequences. And those consequences trickle down through family lines. If a parent was a drug addict and dropped out of high school, never finished high school, oftentimes the consequences of that will trickle down into the children. There's a lot of things that sin trickles down. So when we disobey God, there are consequences for our actions, and we need to be careful to be considerate of that. It may not just be held to us, but our children will feel the downstream effects of it. In session 4, in our study on the 10 Commandments, we will be looking at not misusing God's name. So we'll see you then, and God bless.